And welcome to the Manchester Culture Bunker. Now, we cover all sorts of things in Manchester culture. Today, a fairly serious subject, and that is Manchester's gang culture. And my special guest was a member of Moss Side's infamous Gooch gang. We're going to be talking about him and his life, and also the book he's written all about it, which is called, what is it? Through the Eyes of Mine. Through the Eyes of Mine. Mm-hmm. And it's Arron Locz. Arron Locz, Grossman.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually. So, again, you've written this book a while ago. You've got your second edition about to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back to your story and where it started. Because although you ended up in a notorious Moss Side gang, you're actually an Old Trafford lad like me.
Yeah. I'm originally from Longsight. That's where I was born and raised, like when I was a child, from like probably say 3 to 6, and then from 3 to 6 moved to Rusholme, and then Rusholme was kind of like where I kind of grew up, and then say Old Trafford's always been my mum's area, my spot where I've kind of been raised and grew up. But then because of certain circumstances and situations, my mum just kind of moved from, area to area until we kind of situated back into Old Trafford in probably say early 90s. And then it was around, about 6, 7 when I went back to Old Trafford, and been there ever since.
So, I mean, what was your life growing up? I mean, your mum was Irish, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Or but Irish, but of Slovakian extraction, hence the name.
I think so, due to Grossman name. I think it was my mum's mum is Irish, but my mum's dad was somewhere from the European law. Like, I know he wasn't fully English or Irish or anything like that. So that's where that relationship comes from with that second name, because it's not an Irish name or anything like that. So yeah, it was just basically, I didn't even really know.
Yeah. I mean,
my granddad or my nana. So I think it was before my time, because they passed very early, when my mum was only probably say a teenager. So I never really kind of met that side.
And your dad was Jamaican.
Yeah.
But he didn't bring you up as such, did he?
No. He's from Portland, I think. Portland, Jamaica. And basically it was just my mum kind of, that I knew of him, knew he was my dad, but then not really kind of had that relationship with him, or kind of, been around him to kind of, have that, solid relationship for him to call my dad or anything like that. So yeah, I didn't really have that relationship with him growing up. But I knew he was around because he lived around the corner. So he was so close, but yet so far. So yeah, it was literally like 5 minutes around the corner as well from where I used to live.
And so you never really saw him?
The only time I saw him was I was probably being bad, and my mum kind of called him to kind of come round and tell me off a little bit, but I don't think that kind of worked. And then it was just kind of my mum really there from long as I can remember.
So I mean, obviously you're going from being a kid. Were you a happy kid?
Yeah, raised in a good home. Mum's no drugs, no violence. Good. Mum's there was no, even though part of the, what can I say, wasn't less fortunate in it, so it wasn't like we had everything.
Yeah.
But mum done well to support, me and my sister before my little brother came along in '94. So yeah.
So that was tough, because actually you were growing up in an era when the government, that Tory government of Thatcher's that then continued on John Major, absolutely hated single parents and did everything they could to make life difficult for them.
Yeah, it was on milk tokens and everything. So it was wasn't something that we was kind of on where, we wanted to be on that.
No, nobody does.
It was just the fact of the circumstances, and I'm sure many people know about milk tokens and stuff like that from back in the early 90s, because even though my mum worked, she was only getting probably say £3.65.
Yeah, there was no minimum wage then either, so they could pay you what they wanted.
It was at least £3.60, £3.50 an hour. So she was working hard, doing different jobs, trying to support, me, my sister, and then my little brother came along. So yeah, it was tough, but mum kind of made everything the way it was. So it didn't kind of go without, even though it was the way it was, we didn't kind of go without. So it was, I can't really remember a time that my mum didn't, birthdays, Christmas, and with the fact of the situation she was in, I used to wonder, how you doing, all this stuff. So it just goes to show, innit, obviously, right, she had it difficult, but she still was able to provide and give us, a good upbringing.
So, I mean, when did you start going off the rails a bit?
Say about 95.
I mean, how old?
I was about 6, 7. I was about 6, 7. Because obviously mum had a boyfriend, obviously that she was with when I was kind of young, but obviously he was kind of like a stepdad to me, Trevor Daly. So I grew up from being a child with Trevor Daly in the household, and we kind of, he was a very good man. Like, it wasn't kind of, he showed me, how respectful, and he was a good man, like a good soul, but he suffered from an illness. So I think it was like 92, around about them times, like 5, 6. He passed, died in his sleep.
Wow. I mean, that's scary for a kid. Well, it would have been awful for your mum as well.
So because of the connection and the relationship that I did have with him, it was, a bit, it's kind of hard, the emotional side, it was kind of hard for me to cope with it. So I didn't know how to, cope with the emotional side of obviously losing him, and didn't understand death and stuff like that. So
and then also as a kid, you're subconsciously thinking, what if your mum dies? Without realising anything, well, what if she goes?
Because that's typically when I found out when he died in his sleep, and I didn't really understand the illness that he had, because I think he had brain cancer or like a brain sort of tumour, and that was the result of him passing, but he was suffering from it for a long time. But obviously because I was only young, I didn't really understand that he was ill. So when he did pass, just like you said, I was like thinking, even myself, like, would I go sleep? And am I going to die in my sleep? Or, is that what happens? Do people go sleep and do they die in the sleep? Or, you know what I mean? And my mum had to like explain to me that it was an illness that he had. And it was just unfortunate that, his time come for him to, depart from us, which kind of left a big hole, obviously not in the family home, but in me. And
well, also in your mum, because she, she's lost her support.
Yeah, she was together with my man, and for a long time. After I was born, so given like 5, 6 years of me growing up, it was just all around him. So yeah, kind of mum lost a good man, and I lost kind of like a good stepdad as well. Especially someone that kind of showed me, right from wrong, and like was telling me, to be a good human, basically. So I think that, kind of.
So what sort of things can you do when you're 6 or 7? Well, I mean, you might nick a Milky Way bar from the shop or something like that.
I think this like you said, it wasn't too much badness. Like, it was just like, from going to school, like not listening to the teachers, just being naughty, mischievous, bringing stuff into school. And then when it gets confiscated, I'd go back to the school. Like, Plymouth Grove was only like round the corner from my house. So if I brought any toys in that the teacher was confiscate, I'd go back to the school, try and break in.
Break in to get your toys back.
Try and get my stuff back. And that's how I'd done this, really. The scar there, that was like the first time that I actually done it, and obviously left blood all over the scene. And
so what sort of toys were you bringing into school? They must have been good ones.
It was just like, you remember Biker Mice from Mars? I'd like them little characters. So I had like a favourite character of one of those, and then used to bring that in, and obviously used to just get toys confiscated, and like obviously you get that back, but obviously I used to just go back to the school at closing time and try and break in, try and get them back, or just try and just nick like this random stuff. It was just like, it was a bit crazy, really. Not how I had that thought, but I just thought I wanted to retrieve my toys back in it. So that's how it first started. Like, that's the first sort of, kind of criminality that I did, and that was due to
Were
like
you not
criminal
scared
damage.
of breaking into the school?
No, because I just knew it was closed, innit?
Uh-huh.
So once I knew it was closed and there was nobody there, it was, it kind of gave me that a bit more.
Did anyone help you, or did you just do it on your
I
own?
had like a few friends,
Yeah.
but they wasn't like as curious as I was, So as soon as the window went in, that day was off, and I'd be like trying to get in through the window, and I cut my hand. There, slid it all open, and the camera was on me. So I tried to deny it. Obviously, I had to go back home, pissing me blood and everything, and so I had to tell my mum the reasons why, and then so I got saw on the CCTV. I got suspended for it. Well,
So you would have thought that had put you off. So why didn't it?
Like I said, I think it was just dealing with a lot of the emotional side of like, not having the person there that could tell me not to do that. That's wrong. So I think just losing him was a really big factor of my behaviour, and that's what kind of like spiraled out of control. Especially going to school and just being naughty and just not listening to the teachers, and that's how it started. Like,
Well, was it because you subconsciously were distracted all the time? You were thinking about it all the time?
Yeah, maybe so. Like, just constantly on my mind. Like, is he coming back? Like, is it just a joke? Like, thought everything was just kind of like a dream for me. So it really affected me, like, much, because I really loved him, like, as a proper, like, he was a good man.
I mean, did kids get any counselling at that age?
Not that I'm aware of, no. But I think it only took probably obviously that was like little misbehavioural things at like 5, 6, but my behaviour didn't start to spiral out of control until I was probably 8, 9. That's when it kind of really, criminal damage, just like, just doing more things that would lead, police coming to the house and council, threatening my mum with eviction, just loads of, because mum has been evicted due to my behaviour a good few times.
That's quite tough though, isn't it?
Just getting evicted from the area, from the house that you're in, because so many neighbours are complaining.
And how did you feel about that? Because obviously it messes it up for your little brother and your sister as well, doesn't it?
Probably at the time I didn't really care in it, or I didn't really kind of see the effect of what it was having on my mum. So yeah, like, I didn't really kind of like acknowledge, or I didn't really care about other people or what people said. It was just the only person that could tell me was gone. So like, it was just, I want to do my own thing. Nobody could tell me anything. I didn't like to hear the word no. So if I heard that, it was like, oh, I'm gonna do it anyway. So yeah, it should have been a bit more. But obviously, it's not like to say I didn't have aunties and other family members that were staunch, that would, tell me like, not to be doing this, but it was just me, I just never listened.
But also they wouldn't necessarily know how to do it. How do you support a kid who's lost, because I had a sister who died when she was 11, and I remember our Mary was only 6, and she was like dead worried then when my older brother was going to be 11, and then worried when she was going to be 11. And it's all sorts of stuff, and nobody got any counselling. No, it was left to shut up and put up in a way.
Especially if it's just your first time and like your first experience of it.
Well, when you're so young, how are you supposed to cope with that, I suppose?
So that was like the main factor of.
But when you said that I started to get really bad when I was 8 and 9, what is it that you can do that's that bad when you're 8 and 9?
Obviously, I put it down to my auntie's boyfriend. Obviously, she's here today with me, Caroline. Warren, he came from Ireland, but at the time, in the early 90s, he was like, a bit of a street guy.
Yeah.
And he actually came over from Ireland on the run from so many gangsters from Ireland, and he was just like one of those. He was on his own stuff, but he's just a madman, sort of like. But I didn't really kind of I didn't really kind of see all that in him. It was the fact of he was my auntie's boyfriend, and it was him that kind of showed, because of the lifestyle that he was in. it was him that kind of showed me the first time about dismantling pieces, firearms, like anything to do with like what he was on. Like he would, even though he didn't want to show me or like have me around it, it was like his way of like showing me like this is the life that you don't want to be getting involved in.
By making it seem dead glamorous to you.
And it was like, I didn't really kind of look at that as if like it was, I don't really kind of look at him as a bad person, because he really wasn't. It was a fact of his life that he was involved in.
So how old were you then when he was showing you how to assemble a firearm?
I think I was like, it was like 6, 7.
I don't think it's very responsible adult behaviour.
I never told my mum this or thingy.
I'm not surprised.
My auntie and that, like, because obviously them times, my mum and auntie knew exactly who he was and what sort of life they had. But to be around and show or have it around me, it's not like the fact that he had it around me or he wanted to show me these things. It was the fact of I just wanted to be around him all the time. So me being around him, kind of, you're gonna see things and, you know, certain things that you can't really kind of shy away from. But I think it was a kind of good thing where he taught me a lot about, you know, it was very educational. Like for me to kind of like understand.
What in case you want to become the jackal?
Now this mean like, because in the sense of like not many people understand like other people's lives in it. So I understood him as a person, and because he was my auntie's boyfriend, it was like I looked at him as like, you know, a very good, even though he may not look as a good role model, but him as a person, if you knew him, he would tell me no, like he would tell me like, don't be doing this, like this is, you know, this is like, you know, my circumstances. And even it's me that wanted to be around him, so I saw it like for myself, like for not him just saying, oh, this is, you know, and like, come here, let me show you this, and you know what I mean? It's just me wanting to, oh, what's that, curious, and you know, might find something in his house and say, oh, what's this? And then that's
what sort of things?
Firearms, like, it was like, but it's not like just lying around. I could just find it being curious and nosy, just in a bag or something. Or I could just like, you know, kick something and something might just fall out and be like, oh, what's this?
But what sort of things were there?
This is like gloves, just loads of different, like, just different things where I only saw like one firearm though in my life, and that was from him. I was there at the time. But then I found it in the bag. So then it was kind of like me just being curious and like, you know, finding stuff and then him telling me what it was. It wasn't him directly showing me what things was. It was me kind of being curious and, you know, like him just not wanting to, him not shying away from, you know, him just like being himself in it and just saying, this is what it is and you should be on this, and, you know, like make sure, because he's always positive and always giving me good advice not to get involved in, you know, crime and, you know, not even to smoke and all these type of things. So it was a good role model in sense of giving me good advice and showing me, you know, be respectful and, you know, this, that and the other. And, you know, it's just a shame that, you know, his life was the way it was. And then I think it helped years later anyway for myself, because obviously I ended up getting involved in, you know, a lot of street stuff and gangs and stuff like that.
We're gonna get to there, but so in the meantime, you're going bad 8 or 9. What kind of bad things are you doing, and why do you think you were doing them? If you had this new guy who was a role model, despite showing you how to put together a Smith & Wesson and where the silencer was or whatever else, you know?
Like I said, it's two ends of the spectrum, innit? Like 1 minute I had a good guy that was giving me guidance, showing me, you know, love, loyalty, you know, how to kind of, you know, conduct yourself and be a man and stuff like that. So I had that side of the thing, but that was gone. So then me personally, growing up watching movies, you know, seeing, and it's just not even like, not to say my uncle, because, or my mum's like, well, auntie's boyfriend, should I say. It was just a fact of being in the area where I was. Like that alone, kind of just, you know, different people that was older than me that had younger brothers. I'd go around to their house, you know, there'd be music playing, there'd be loads of guys chilling in the kitchen.
And they'd have cars, they'd have nice cars.
Yeah, it's not even just the fact of my auntie's boyfriend, but that was where I saw it first-handedly. But then on a wide spectrum, being around the area at the time, it was just like go to, like I said, your mate's house, they've got older brothers, you know, they've got guys chilling on the front, or, you know, you just be around the area, a nice sunny day, how it is, and then you just on your little bike, you see all these guys chilling, and, you know, they just get to know you, because, you know, you're just a young nipper, like this on your bike around the hood, or, you know, this, because you live there, so you're gonna see, not even just at home, you're gonna see a wide spectrum of things, obviously from your community and from the people that you know, all their older brothers, cousins, uncles, dads. So yeah, I think that was kind of like more of it.
Did you end up being a kind of messenger boy?
In what sense?
Well, you know, like doing errands on your bike.
No, it's like I was always my own self, innit? Like I never really kind of. I had friends where I'd kind of, you know, do what they was on, but then no one couldn't really, like, I think it was more kind of pressure, innit? Like my friends are doing what they're doing. I just what I kind of like fit in it.
But that, I mean, that was again, it's quite a scary decision, isn't it, to end up in a gang, especially given, you know, the history of the areas, and number of people have been, you know, some killed through mistaken identity.
Yeah.
All of that, you know, it was quite a range war going on. So what made you kind of drift into that? Because, you know, there's safer ways of being a criminal.
There's a lot of like, it's a wide range of things. Like obviously something personal, obviously with the gang sort of side, is that I never really classed myself or looked at myself as, you know, a gang or like a gang member. It was more like the people I was raised around, and, you know, my good friends, they was more, you know, family to me. So it was kind of more like raised into it, where I didn't just decide one day, oh, I'm going to be, you know, part of this or, you know, part of that. It was part of my furniture already. So the people I was raised around, people I was, you know, kind of grew up around, basically family. So obviously, don't forget, I'm coming out and going into care. I'm coming out of the care system.
Yeah, so how did that happen? You went into care?
Like I said, it was my behaviour from the start of not going to school. And then, you know, it started then, you know, going onto the streets, you know, police are getting called. You know, I'm not coming home. Mum's like just going missing. Mum having to call the police. I'm in town, like at 8, 9 years old, like, you know, robbing, like thieving.
But you're not going to be safe in town, age 9, are you?
I mean, and there's like a group of us, like a group of friends. So I wasn't there on my own all the time. I wasn't just walking around town. Sometimes I'd be walking around town on my own, but that's just to, you know, knowing that, you know, my other friends are going to be coming, or it's not going to be long before I'm going to, you know, buck up into them or whatever. But I'd never be on town on my own. It'd be always with, you know, a group of friends. So we used to just thieve and rob, and, you know, this crazy stuff, really.
What sort of stuff were you robbing at the time?
Used to rob used to go at the back of restaurants and, you know, rob all the liquor and the wine from the Chinese Chinatown, all the restaurants probably.
How did you know where to look at that age?
Because I was obviously say 8, 9, but then my good friend at the time, Antoine, his older brother Wesley, they was like 13, 14, so they was obviously up to date with, you know, the criminal side of things. So we used to watch them, and they was like the more kind of advanced sort of like guys, and I used to just watch them, really. So I kind of learned, you know, basically thieving and robbing off Scott Street, and obviously like Wesley and them type of like people there. So like they was like the high end guys that knew exactly what to rob, where to rob it, you know, who to sell it to, you know, all that. So I kind of learned off them, kind of, really. And they was like, they was like the guys you know, that would be on. There's know what to rob, and like they wouldn't even rob no stupidness either. It'd always be stuff where, you know, and they would never rip you off either. Like they'd always give me, you know, money in my hand. They'd be like, so I think that was more kind of an incisive kind of thing where, you know, I'm getting money for it, and you know, it was just exciting, innit, being a kid and just being like, not having to do much because the older guys would be doing it, but I'm just there like learning, and you know what I mean, and that's how it became a bit more excessive.
I mean, how much money would you have as a kid doing that?
Then up to like £100 sometimes.
Wow. And did your mum not know you had 100 quid?
Because I'd just be like spending it, innit, on just like stupidness, and like that would be blown. Or £100 at that age was a lot of money. And that's the thing, I never.
So what would you be
ripped off.
buying, like PlayStation games?
No, because obviously that would be more, obviously, things at home like my mum would notice, but I'd just been like just spending it on just out, just like going to, you know, fairs or like arcades. Like used to spend a lot of money in the arcade in town, even though I was only younger than that. Like,
they're like they're full of pedos, aren't they? The arcades.
It was a lot like, it was a lot of I say like, you know, this shops, like, because I was out all day, all night, so the money wouldn't last. I'd give my friends money, like,
Yeah.
although, you know what I mean, with £100 or £80 or something like that, you'd think it would be a lot, but as soon as you start spending and you can give your mates some money and it'd be gone. So
It's a classic grafters thing, though, isn't it? They never have money because they always spend it, no matter how much they've got. That was one thing I always noticed.
so I just kind of learned from them, really. That was like the top end things, but little like thieving from the shop and theft and, you know, crisp chocolates or, you know, sweets and stuff like that. That was when I was like a young buck. When I, you know, went to going into town, and it was getting the bus from obviously Longsight at them times, the 192, obviously going all the way to town and meeting my friends. So I'd be sneaking on the bus, going to like Piccadilly, and then staying out all night.
Surprised you weren't getting taxis if you're on 100 quid. Actually, I shouldn't be condoning this sort of behaviour, by the way, you know, but again, you know, so what happened? When did you get caught and when did you end up in care? Because I'm just thinking your mum must have been tearing her hair out.
No, thinking back then, obviously now I'm an adult, it's like, obviously I've got an 11-year-old son now myself.
Ooh.
So thinking back, if I'm putting myself in his shoes,
It would be terrifying that your kid doing that.
So I could understand my mum, obviously back then, of obviously, you know, threatening. So yeah, there was a lot of kind of pressure on her because she had to like kind of sign like a form at them time to kind of still have consent, obviously, of what goes on, have a say with me. But then it was a basis of they need to do something before I end up killing someone or getting killed myself, because like I said, I'm 8-9 years old, innit? And like we're getting reported missing, finding me in town. It was just a lot, not going education. Like there was a lot to build up to.
What was that like?
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, turn it off.
Forgot. Totally forgot.
Cool. So, but here you are going into care, and that's a terrifying prospect at that age. 'Cause my mum used to threaten us like that if we answered back. You know what I mean? I'll have you taken into care. You think, oh my God.
My mum didn't want to do it.
No.
And that was probably the hardest decision I probably had to make.
But how did you feel at that time?
To be fair, I was kind of confused. I didn't really understand what was going on, or didn't really think it was, you know, reality for me.
So you were 9, you're going to care. Where was it? Where were you taken into care?
Buxton,
So right out in the hills, yeah.
Yeah, so it was, even though it was not too far,
It's far enough.
Going there and just seeing just middle of nowhere, it's like you are, you know, just a mission away from home. So, yeah, that was a bit kind of worrying and scary for me at the time. But I think due to me being streetwise and, you know, due to me being a bit more advanced than a normal kid at that age, going there was scary and being around, you know, a totally different environment and people. But then the only thing that bothered me was not being away from my mum and family and, you know, sister and stuff like that, and not actually understanding why I'm there.
I mean, what was the regime like? So what was the place like, the care home?
It's called the Roaches. Still going today, actually. So it's like...
Is it a big old spooky looking building?
It's like a farmhouse.
Yeah.
Sectioned into bedrooms. I think this holds like between 7 to 8 kids.
Oh, is that all then? So there's only a few.
So it wasn't like a big dormitory, like mansion type place.
Like Oliver Twist.
Yeah, it wasn't nothing like that.
Queuing up for your gruel.
Yeah, it was just like a normal farmhouse run by off a generator. Obviously back in like the early 90s, like 95, 96. And then I know it was in like Buxton, Stoke-on-Trent, the Roaches. But it was only 7 to 8 kids.
Yeah.
Girls and boys.
And what were the other kids like?
I was only there for my behaviour and school. So other kids that was there for, you know, being molested.
Oh,
there was orphans.
Some horrible stories.
Yeah, like there was a few kids there that was there for, you know, a lot of other deeper stuff than me. And I was only there for like my behaviour and education. So it was just targeting that for me. But other kids that was there, like I remember Earl, it was just he was going back like 96, he was an orphan. He didn't have no mum or dad, but he was like a young black kid just as me. It was only me and Earl that I remember, because he was a black kid.
Yeah.
He's the only guy I remember, really. And he was similar age as me, but he was an orphan, he had no mum and dad. I think his mum and dad got killed or whatever happened. And there was so much like trauma kids there as well that was suffering from, you know, being molested or didn't.
I mean, you just wouldn't have understood that either, would you, at that age?
Nah, at that age. And that's when I became more aware of, you know, other things that other people may go through. And, you know, this is why part of the reason I'm here too, because, you know, my behaviour, not going to school and stuff like that, but other kids are there for all different types of reasons. And that was the lower school. That was Roaches, the lower school, but then you've got Roaches, the higher school, which is Fairhaven. That's like the upper grade, which is like the teenagers now. So when I've left Roaches from 9 till 11, I've turned 11, and that's classed as going into secondary school. So you go to Fairhaven, and Fairhaven is just the upper one to the Roaches.
And what was that like, Fairhaven?
That was even more like, a bit more like in your face, because you had more like older kids there then. So I was only like 11, and now you're meeting teenagers that are 13, 14, 15, 16. So
and did they bully you? Were they quite
nasty?
Like used to get
bullied. Like used to get bullied by the older kids, but then bullied to the point where I ended up, you know, stabbing one of them with the pen. Obviously it was just a right repetitive, like, because there was only a black kid there. Like everyone.
Did they never think about that though?
Nah, there was only like, literally there was only me that was the black kid there. But obviously I'm mixed race, but you still get considered as obviously a black person in it. So they didn't really kind of see, or was.
And also a lot of them would have been from these sort of areas where
never really seen a person like me before. So there was a bit of intrigue. Well, some of them was nasty and horrible. And I did have to fight. It's not like they were getting bullied and, you know, I wasn't fighting, but that's when, from being in the lower school to being, you know, innocent and being a kid and all, you know, getting looked after properly by the staff and whatnot. There was actually a woman called Tina there, actually, and she actually saved me from a lot of mad thoughts of, like, you know, thinking I'm a mum and, you know, mum didn't love me and all this type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's really tough, isn't it?
So she actually kind of reinstalled.
I mean, how often did you... Because, I mean, again, for your mum, she's got 2 other kids to worry about. Unless she had her own car, it's very hard to get to Buxton.
She didn't drive back then either, so...
So how often would you see her? Maybe once every 2 weeks? Once a week?
Once every 6 months.
Wow, that's really hard.
But I used to go on for weekends.
Ah, right, okay.
So she'd come up, obviously, once every 6 months, because it was a bit of a trek. but then I used to go home for weekends.
All
so
right,
it wasn't
okay.
like it's not like I wouldn't see her.
Wasn't like you were in prison then.
Nah, but it kind of took me.
So
a while,
you're almost
though.
like at boarding school.
Yeah, similar. Yeah,
Only
similar.
with stabbings. Imagine they have them anyway.
Similar to boarding school, yeah, but not as strict. So I still had freedom, to do what I needed to do, and still got pocket money at the end of the working week from school, and like they tried to still, reintegrate you into society as like.
Did you do better then in terms of like education and everything? Did you settle down a bit more?
Yeah, I did, because I think it was, like I said, it was Tina and Scott, the educational guy. Obviously, he'd done like practically most things, and he actually taught me chess, and I became chess junior champion. Obviously, while I was in care.
Like the Queen's Gambit.
So like I took a lot of things from there, because that's when I kind of started to understand while I was there and what I needed to do to get back home. So I remember like this little red phone, this underneath like some little window, and then that's the phone I used to phone mum on, and it used to say like it's like 6 o'clock every day that you could use it for like probably say an hour or so. So you said it's like, I want to come home, and I don't want to be here no more. And
Guilt tripping her.
So I knew exactly like why I was there. So I needed to just sort my behaviour out and understand that it's not fair on my mum, because she still had a say of whether or not she disagreed with what they was kind of planning for me. But I used to get assessed, like psychological assessed, and tried to put me on medication, all these type of things. But mum was saying no, like you don't need all that. It just needs some support and some good guidance, and hopefully it'll be all right. But obviously, I think it was going to Fairhaven as well. There was a lot of bad kids there, and a lot of like
well, that's going to make you even
kids.
worse, isn't
and
it?
I think that's what kind of made my situation a bit more worse. Whereas if I stayed in the surroundings of the little roaches, the little school, even just being a teenager and just being there, like this in that surroundings, it would have kind of been a bit more.
Well, even if you'd gone to like a secondary school in your own area, if there was that trouble, you wouldn't be forced into a corner where you would necessarily have to stab someone with a pen.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean? You could always go home, couldn't you?
Like there, you had to be there. I couldn't run off. Or,
there's nowhere to hide.
It's like being in prison, really. But
you got to get in first.
Yeah, so like, and that was just based on feeling alone, like feeling outcasted, because everyone was white, and it's just like.
And what did this kid do to you that made you stab him with the pen? Because that is an act of desperation, really, isn't it?
Used to just like when I used to get a shower. Obviously, you're down like all my clothes would be just on the bench. They'd take my clothes and run off. So then obviously I'd have to like.
That's annoying.
I'd have to like just loads of like improper stuff that would just make me think like, oh, these are taking the piss now. Do you know what I mean? And once I think the last time that happened, I was in education, and I think like started throwing pens at me, and I think obviously I just got pissed off one day, and I was just stabbed in one of the pens that he actually threw at me.
Where did you stab him?
In his leg.
Yeah.
It wasn't nothing too serious or whatever. It was just like a lunge, like it was just like a, you know what I mean. But obviously he got like poked a little bit, but it wasn't nothing too serious. It was like a pen. It was always a pen, wasn't it?
Did he modify his behaviour?
I think we never got on after that. He was from Liverpool, actually.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. But yeah, he was a nasty. I think he was just racist, though, innit? Like, it's just a nasty piece of work. So I kind of just put up with it for too long, and just thought it was only him as well that really kind of used to, everybody else was all right, but it was only just him and a few selected others that was really, getting to me. And this one day I just flipped out and stabbed him with the pen.
So how did you get to go back home then after?
Just kind of gradually,
I mean, what age was it? Was it when you were 15, 16?
Yeah, I went back home when I was 12, 13.
Yeah. So
roughly I think going into my teenage years, 13, 14.
And where did you go to school then?
Edgerton High.
Yeah.
In Stretford, Flixton. That was like borderline school for, bad kids.
I've never heard of it.
So
I thought all the schools in Stretford were a bit like that.
that was the old school though.
Yeah.
But they changed it, and then I think they rebuilt it, and the old one was in Ermston, but then the new one was in Flixton.
Yeah.
And I was from Old Trafford.
And how did you get on then?
It was all right. It was just more or less still, like I said, the same sort of mentality that I had. Like I was coming out of the care system, and then it was not wanting to do education anyway.
But also, were you a little bit easily triggered because of what you've been through?
Yeah, I had like loads of other trauma from like care days, and you know, fighting and racism, and you know, a lot of other stuff that was just like, you know, triggered me and bothered me. So that was like one of the main.
And then also, I imagine if you go to a place in Flixton, there's not that many black kids there either.
Again, and the only person that I met there was a guy called Jamie Fitzgerald. Hoping he's still alive or around today, but I'm not seeing him.
Another nice Irish surname.
I've not seen him for so many years, but it was just me and him. But he was like a white guy from around that area. But then me and him just kind of clicked, and then we just got on so much where he could tell, like, you know, I had it a bit tough and hard. So, like, you know, he had my back. Like he had my back as a
And would he talk you out of overreacting and stuff?
No, I think he was just a bit of a like he was more wanting to like be a good friend to me, like just knowing that, you know, if anyone started with me, that he had my back, and you know, like, and that's basically what kind of, you know, I needed from there. And then if I didn't have that, I think I probably wouldn't even have lasted that long, because I probably would have ended up seriously hurting somebody, just like I probably, you know, wanted to do in care. But then as you get older, you know, you start to become a bit more aware of, like.
I mean, are all these stories in your book that are through the eyes of mine?
Yeah.
I can't wait to read it now. But I actually, you know, because I was going to get it, but I thought.
I was going to bring you a book.
I thought in a weird way it might be better to do this interview without having read it, because then I can talk to you as somebody and get your story.
Yeah.
You know, and it is interesting. So. You're at school, Flixton, Edgerton, and whatever you call it.
Edgerton High, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you go from there to then getting involved in the gang thing?
Because I think back then I went to prison at 15.
Right. And what was that for?
Street robbery.
Right. And when you say street robbery, what, mugging someone?
Yeah, it was just like taking a phone off some kid.
God, people had phones then. Yeah. So modern. We didn't have that in our day.
I know, but it's like again, seeing a phone, it was like phones. Like, people have got phones. I ain't got a phone. I want one of those. So I think it was just basically that, like, this curious, innit? Just wanting to always have.
So where did you do the street robbery?
That was in Rusholme.
Yeah. And was it a student?
No, I was practically the same, like a bit older than me, I think. I was probably say, you know, 14, 15. And I think he was probably the same age. And yeah, it was just like a dumb street robbery where it was just like not really thinking that.
Did you threaten him with anything? Did you hit him? Take it off him?
He was walking with his phone in his hand and I snatched it.
Oh, right.
But then it was kind of like, no, not running off or anything. I just snatched out his hand. But then I think he was more like him not wanting to, you know, get into any kind of disturbance with someone that's just like, you know,
nuts.
So I think that was basically like thingy, and then obviously he reported me, and you know, he was in the back of the police car,
right?
He was circling and going around, and then they saw me and he pointed me out, and obviously that's how I got arrested for it.
So prison for one street robbery seems quite harsh in a way.
I got 4 months due 2 for that.
But that seems quite harsh. I mean, listen, you know, probably something fine, you know, community service, but that seems quite harsh.
Because what they done was, they arrested us for it, me and one of my good friends, and then they've bailed us. So I didn't actually go to prison for that particular offence. They gave me bail, and then while I was on bail, I was seeing the guy and his cousin at the bus stop. So then when I've noticed him at the bus stop, we've gone back to interrogate him to try and drop the charges.
Oh no.
So then he's gone back further to the police and reported me again for witness intimidation.
Well, it was witness intimidation, wasn't
so
it?
then I've got,
like he must have just been imagining it.
So then I've got arrested again for witness intimidation, and that's what's kind of led me back into court. And obviously that's when I've got the 4 months 2-2 for the street.
So where did you go?
That was went to Hindley then.
Yeah, where's that?
Wigan.
Oh, Wigan, yeah, Hindley.
Buckinghamshire, something like that.
Yeah. And what sort of place was that? Was that just a regular kind of Borstal reform school thing, or was it?
That was like a juvenile prison.
Yeah.
You had like the juveniles on E and F, and then you had the older Wales that was like 17, 18.
So that would have been quite a rough place, wasn't it?
It was fighting a lot anyway.
Scousers.
There's a lot of Scousers there. That's where I first met a lot of Scousers, a lot of good friends even to this day. Few fights, but whatever. But then as you go through the system and you start to know people, and then you're not classed as an idiot or whatever, or you're a pushover. It's just about respect and how you conduct yourself sometimes in prison. It's not always about being the hardest. So I think that's what kind of just related to many other people in there. That was kind of like.
So you're only in there for 2 months.
Yeah, that was the 4 months do 2 spell. That was for the original street robbery, because I breached the conditions. Because they give me yacht for it, which is youth offending team. At the time, it's like part of probation. So they give me that for the 4 do 2. But then obviously I breached it by. The first thing was the witness intimidation, and then while I was on the curfew and I think some other yacht type of things, and I had to go to some meetings and stuff like that, youth offending team. Then I breached that, and that's when they sent me to prison for the original street robbery charge and gave me 4 months do 2.
So you come out of there, you come out of prison. You're not making yourself sound great here, by the way.
Not selling myself.
Let's just go through it.
It's not a job interview.
Yeah, exactly. But so you come out of prison. Then what do you do? Are you back at school or?
I'm just on the street then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just on the street then, like fresh out of prison, only a few months. And a few of my mates that I've left whilst I was in Hindley, they was doing like 10 years, 7-year sentences and stuff like that. So it was already surrounded and embedded by, people going to prison, and even understood that other people that I knew that was older than me that was in prison when I was that age.
Well, even when I grew up in Old Trafford back in the old days, in the 70s, once you were about 14, there were so many kids that they'd actually want to be caught and get sent to reform school just to join the crew. Do you know what I mean? You go toughen them up.
Yeah, so
and you go, why would you want to do that? Do your O-levels instead. And then they'd be telling you all the stories when they came back.
Education's a better path anyway.
Yeah, but they'd tell you all the stories. It ended up like when I saw that film, Scum. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I've heard all these stories already.
That's proper boarding school, isn't it?
But there was this coterie of people, some lads that I knew, who were mates of mine from primary school, and that's what they did. And you go, well, you were quite bright. Why would you want to get down? Like on the roof of some shop, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and someone's trying to break in where they'd already been caught breaking into the same place to, and what are you going to nick? Some fags and Marvel comics. So there was a touch of that, was a bit of the culture in those areas.
Definitely, yeah. Because
where it was normalised, wasn't it?
So like I said, even like this people in the surrounding area was like, it's what you see, and it's it's what kind of you've been around, and for a kid as well,
being the lookout for people when they're robbing somewhere.
It was like that's what you do as friends, isn't it? It's like no one really wants to get caught when you do like something bad. So yeah, I think it was just like a lot of for me, like I said, a lot of it was just this learnt behaviour in it, and just like kind of just wanting to be like, and a lot, like I said, a lot of it was due to me not understanding my own emotion. And then obviously because I've gone too far now in, probably say just being on the road and the street sort of life. Coming out of prison, you would think I would want to kind of, you know, do something different. But then come out at 16 then. And then literally from 16, it was just, you know, completely madness.
When did you feel you thought, okay? When did you become what you would call a serious criminal?
I think when I got caught for the shooting, really.
Right, so let's lead up to that gently, because you've jumped the gun a bit. Let's pull it back a bit. How do you go from 16 to being involved in that kind of thing, getting involved in shooting?
Like I said, it was just me and my good friends back then. I didn't really class myself as being or wanting to be in a gang, because it wasn't that for us. It was just more like...
I mean, by the time you ended up in Gooch, I mean, loads of them have been banged up by then. Or, you know, worse.
But we're like the last of like my era. Obviously, it's like there's no one before us and there's no one after me. So like my era from my age, like now, from I'm 37 now. So like my age now, or probably say a year older than me. Like there was only probably say a handful of us. So it wasn't really like a full team of like...
Yeah, from like in the back in the old days when it was we kind of teamed up with Cheetah Mill and it was like
there was none of that.
Hill
we had
Doddington.
We had our own section. So we was like younger than everybody else. So all the older lot, obviously they was on what they was on, but we was doing what we was doing. So we didn't kind of, you know, see ourselves as part of them, because we was on our own stuff. And then because we're from that side, and you know, people are going to always have that perception of people in it, if they're involved in criminality or is a criminal, or if he's around gangs or he's a gang member and stuff like that. So
what was the how did you get drawn into a kind of rivalry? So you're affiliated with a gang, Gooch. You've been around for a long time. They were kind of affiliated loosely with Cheetah Mill, and then you think all the other gangs that are around in Manchester at the time, in Salford, you know, they were quite serious. You had, you know, the guys from the Irish traveller guys from North Manchester. Better not mention them. Nobody else does, do they? You know, then you had like the Pitbull crew and all that. You know, I mean, there was loads of different gangs around Manchester. So, you know, where did you fit in that kind of landscape? Because I mean, it would worry me. I'd be a bit stressed going to bed at night. I'd be sleeping with the light on if I was in a gang.
I think it was like due to me losing one of my mentors. Obviously, I used to look out for us. Obviously, he got shot and killed.
And who was this?
And that was Martin Bennett. So then he used always to give us guidance and show us and teach us, because he had that respect, not only just from his side, but a lot of, you know, in my side respected him. So he was like, you know, he was a real respected, good man, good heart and everything else. So, because when he died, that was like the tipping, that was like, because that was 99. So I think 99 to early 2000, that was like my teenage tipping point then of, right, you know, that was like me kind of making that transition then into wanting to be like, you know, getting involved in that.
So was this ongoing war with Doddington in Moss Side? I mean, which is crazy, isn't it? Because you've got Gooch there and Doddington's about 50 yards away, isn't it, across the road?
It's literally a stone throw away. But I'm from Old Trafford, you see. So I'm not even from Gooch Estate. Yeah. But I've just got, you know, my ties and family ties and good friends and people that I grew up with that was from there. So how did that rivalry arise? I mean, I know the Pepper Hill gang preceded what became Doddington, and that was Delroy Brown, wasn't it? It was a Brummy guy came up here. Yeah, well before my time.
No? Yeah. So how does that carry on? That kind of.
Well, it should have been settled from back then. Now,
because you'd have thought they'd all just get in the same gang, wouldn't you?
And you would have thought they would all be getting money together and, you know, looking out for each other. That's the way it's supposed to be. But I think due to certain circumstances and, you know, like you said, the likes of Delroy Bryan and people like that have, you know, well before my time, and you just hear about things. It's like, you know, they're the people that have kind of, you know, left a bad taste in other people's mouths where like so much things have gone on over the sake of disloyalty or, you know, people not being who they are, and then, you know, things are spiral out of control, and then before you know it, you know, a lot of people end up dying, don't they? And I think that's the kind of turning point for even young people growing up, to where if the, you know, dads get killed or the brothers get killed or, you know, their uncles or, you know, anybody, good friend, it can either make you or break you, can it? It can either want you to go and get the people that, you know, responsible, or it can change your mind of like, I don't want to get in that life, I want to do something better. So it's kind of two sides of the spectrum, really.
But there was always that danger again of like lads who might just know someone but aren't part of
That
a
again,
gang,
yeah. That
but
again.
because they're seen sort of chatting about football or what they saw on the telly last night with a guy on the street for 5 minutes, they then get mistaken as if they're with them.
That's like, and that's mistaken identity, innit? Sometimes where people will misinterpret who you are as a person because you know.
I mean, was there a lot of paranoia around?
Yeah, I was paranoid to death. Like, you know, I don't think there was any a day that I didn't really carry something on me, or didn't want to have something round the corner, or, you know, close by, because, you know, it was just, you know, it was that sort of like life, and, you know, it was that dangerous.
How did so you said when this guy Martin Bennett was killed, so up until then you're not doing anything like this, you're just involved in what sort of crime were you doing then?
Wasn't really too major, really. Two things like that, just like little thefts, like, you know, robbing taxis, you know, a bit of money. You know, used to like rob people's stereos and bass boxes out of the car.
You wouldn't even get any money for that nowadays, would you?
Sorry, like, now that back then it was the proper setup, so you'd have the bass box system and amplifiers, and, you know, that's what you'd have to do in your car, so people would have to do that to, you know, enhance the sound.
I had a mate of mine who lived on Bold Street with my dad when he, you know, and with his first job he saved up and got this really, he only had like a Ford Fiesta, but he had these great speakers in the back and everything, and he got in one day, turned it on, and there was there were no signs the car had even been broken into, and they'd nicked his speakers.
Yeah, literally, that's exactly what we used to do, and there was a lot of money in it as well, so a lot of people, obviously, that had their own flashy cars would want the sort of stuff like that, but because they couldn't have it, or because they couldn't buy it, or they didn't want to spend that much money on, like, you know, big bass boxes and amplifiers and good stereos, we used to go out and rob them, and obviously give like the man them half price, or, you know, people that you knew, like, I got this for sale here, you know what I mean? But it was the thing to do back then, like, as a kid, like, because everybody wanted face-offs.
Yeah.
You know, Kenwood face-offs, so everybody wanted, you know, it's a good bike, or, you know, everybody wanted something just like decent, because no one couldn't just get it like how they could do today.
I mean, how far would you range off your territory to do?
I never used to rob on my own, like from like my own doorstep. It'd always be, you know, going over to the rival side, like robbing their bikes, or, you know, robbing their taxis over there, or, you know, was going a bit further down the road than just doing it, you know, on my doorstep, because never really used to kind of want to shit on my own doorstep, because I used to just think I can go somewhere else and do that. 'Cause I didn't want to just end up robbing somebody and having to go past them the next day.
So where'd you go from like doing that kind of robbery to then being involved in, like, you know, serious incidents with gangs?
Like I said, part of the surroundings and the, you know, the circumstances that lead into them sort of situations.
Well, tell me what
like
the first time that you did it. Let's say the first time you were involved in something, as long as it's not going to get you in trouble.
Obviously, I can't really expose myself in that way, but the main incident, what I actually got arrested for, well, you can't actually say that was like the first one, was the shooting that I got involved in, and obviously I got arrested for that. Obviously, with my involvement. And
is that hard for you to talk about now?
No, because everything's all documented. Like, everything's, you know, in the book. I've been arrested for it. I've done my time for it. So there's nothing on that crime or that shooting.
But how did it feel to you at the time that you did it?
Didn't really feel anything, to be honest. Like, I think it was just more adrenaline and more excitement of, just like knowing. Because at the time, it might sound a bit weird or, sick to some people, but like at the time, because you're so wrapped up in that sort of world and that sort of frame of mind, I didn't know he actually got shot until it was just through the grapevine, just like probably say like an hour or so after. Or you heard about such and such, or you heard about such and such. And then, because of the rumours, I was just like, wanting to know a bit more on obviously what had happened to him, but me not knowing exactly what happened, because even though I was the guy who done it, it was the not knowing not knowing what sort of condition he is in, or is he gonna die, or all that type of stuff. So
how did that make you feel? That uncertainty and that.
I had to made me feel a bit uneasy, but then like not really caring at the same time, because it was like I set out to do what I wanted to do, because it wasn't just like any old person either. It was like, it was specific people, because these people would do harm to us. And that's one thing with me. I wouldn't just go out on my way to to shoot some random person, or just do something to anybody like that, because it wasn't the way I'd done things. Like I'd always have respect anyway, like for the morals.
But it still takes a lot of bottle, even like guys in the army, they train for years to do this, because it's not an easy thing, is it, to like shoot someone?
But like I said, going back from Warren, being 6'7", and just being around, him, before I was even involved in gangs, or before I was even, shot that firearm that obviously shot the guy, I was around that sort of stuff anyway. And like I said, Warren I used to just watch him, not show me. He didn't show me like, this is how you do it, and get older and whatever. It wasn't nothing to do with that. It was the fact of him doing what he was doing, and I'm just there. So I'd see him dismantling all these type of things, and I'd just be watching and then learning from what I used to see. I took that into, what I was involved in at the time. So I was a bit more advanced than like, certain individuals. So I think that kind of helped me, obviously being in them situations.
And how did you get caught for this then?
My own people come caught and then grassed on me.
Right.
So it was a sticky one, because it was just me and one of my good friends at the time. Obviously, he was actually involved in the shooting. He had a sawn off, and I had the 38 Smith & Wesson. So the bullet that shot the guy, that got taken out of his head, was the .38 slug. But they have to take his eye out or something like that to take the fragments, obviously, from the bullets that got left in his head or something like that. So there was loads of loads of different things within the case that I could have got off with if certain people didn't talk to the police. But then
would they not have been scared of being involved in the jeopardy thing, where everyone's equally guilty?
That's what I thought, because at the time, you think family, good friends, and a lot of that stuff. So when that first happened, and obviously I went to...
No, joint enterprise, that's it.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. So they done my Code D basically for being with me at the time of the shooting, because they couldn't prove he was actually part of the case until certain things came out in evidence. So I pleaded guilty to firearms and a lot of other things before trial, because I thought I was going to get off with the attempted murder for the shooting, because I thought they didn't have really that much evidence on me. But it was only until my barrister, when I was sat in prison, it was only until him coming to visit me, probably say a few months before I got rearrested in prison, come back with a statement from one of my friend's mum at the time. Obviously, she made a statement that kind of put me at the scene. So from when that statement got handed to the police, that kind of opened up the door then for investigation and, you know, stuff like that. So then my house got raided, and then they found the actual firearm that got used in the shooting. You know,
I mean, it's all horrible. It's pretty horrific. But again, then you would think, what on earth did you keep the firearm for?
Didn't want to give it away.
Yeah.
It's mine. Like that, them times as well. It was like I could have put it anywhere else, but then me thinking, no one's gonna know it's me. Like I'm not gonna get grassed on. Like, you know, it's gonna be a lot of. It's gonna be a lot of like intelligence from somebody to kind of like, you know, be here and like automatically think.
Well, I mean, I think again, it's back to your family. What did your mum think at the time? Your brother, your sister?
Mum didn't even know. So I think my little brother knew, because obviously he used to see me, and you know, my sister knew, and you know, not like knew that he was there, but they knew what I was up to, and they knew obviously I was involved in, you know, what I shouldn't have been and whatever. But at the same time, what can your mum do? Like, she can only tell you and give you advice, but then it's you that's, you know, going out the door, and it's you that's being, you know, up to no good and being involved in whatever you're involved in, and you're trying hard not to bring that sort of stuff home.
So, I mean, look, people are going to be listening and going, attempted murder. They had to dig a bullet out of the guy's head. So, you know,
I was lucky though, yeah, I was lucky at the same time.
So then you went to prison for that. How long?
17 years ago.
Wow.
17 years ago, which obviously that was due to me pleading guilty before a trial. And then I ran trial on the attempted murder, which then I got found guilty on. And then I came out with a 10-year sentence. Obviously off to 7, because they run the 7 concurrent before trial. And I just got sentenced for 1 year for the bullets and 9 years for the shooting itself. So I came out with a 10-year sentence out of 17. So I kind of done well still. I was only 16 at the time as well, so I kind of got a squeeze, because it was judge's discretion whether I was going to get a life sentence or, you know, something a bit more like a bit more numbers than what I got.
So age 16, facing that time, I mean, that's an eternity at that age.
Yeah, it felt like it. Yeah.
Now I've been waiting that long for United to win the league again. So, but it's one of those, isn't it? It's like, how do you deal with that mentally? To think, oh my God, 10 years.
I think because of the life that I was involved in and what I was up to, I don't think any of that time really concerned me. I think it was more about leaving my mum behind. And, you know, I'm not gonna see certain people for a long time. But me personally, I could have just done that. And I did do that.
So where did they send you first? Because if you're 16, you're not going to go to mainstream prison.
I was in Hindley first, and then they catted me off, and then I went to Woodhill, and that's where I seen and built up a relationship with Charles Bronson. Yeah. And until this day, we still communicate.
So he's a guy who just kept it, you know, fighting with prison warders until he got his sentence increased. He's not a great mentor, is he?
Not back then, anyway.
let me help you turn your 10-year sentence into a 30-year sentence.
Because he wasn't directly on the wing with us. Yeah. Because he was obviously on the unit on the other side. Yeah. But I used to communicate through letters and that with him. And then not only until I've come out of prison years later now, I sent him obviously my first edition, obviously, of my book. He was in Woodhill, and he received it, but obviously I've yet to send him the new edition. Obviously one that's just come out last month. But we've always been in communication from obviously back then, from obviously all them years ago. But that's only because I went to Woodhill.
So Woodhill was when you were 18?
I was only 16, and they started me up.
Well, why would they be sending you to prison with adults at that age?
They started me up. There was no other cat establishments in the country that could hold me, because it was only juvenile.
Oh, it's all because of the sort of crime you'd done?
Yeah, so they couldn't put me in Strangeways, and then all the local other prisons that are in Manchester, they're not cat establishments. So Strangeways was an adult prison where they couldn't put me on the unit. So if I went there, they'd have to put me in healthcare, which they can't keep me down there, because you can only stay down there for 72 hours before they relocate you to one of the wings. So until because I'm not 18 yet anyway, I'm not classed as an adult. or because I'm not 21, you're only classed as an adult until you go to cons. So until you're 21, you're classed as a YP. So from 16 practically to, I was gonna say 18. I think I was, just turned 17, went to Woodhill, and then from 17 to 18 and a half, when I turned 18, literally as soon as I turned 18, that's when they sent me from Woodhill back to Strangeways. And then
was Strangeways better? I mean, it's a horrible place, but at least I suppose it's
closer.
easier for your mum to visit.
Yeah, but while I was in custody, my mum never used to came to visit, because obviously she was suffering from her own, depression, and suffering from her own kind of anxieties, and from when I went to prison, it kind of demoralised her.
Yeah, was she not scared that she'd get targeted because of what you'd done?
Not really. Like, I don't think she was scared in that way. I think she was just more kind of worried that her son just gone for prison for a long time, innit? And even though 10 years may not sound that long, back then, having to do 2/3, it's like probably say nearly 7 years out of it, or 7 years, 10 months I've done out of it.
But I mean, when you went to Strangeways, weren't there going to be other people from gangs around Manchester in Strangeways?
There was, but we was on the Cat A unit, so it's not really that easy it's not really that accessible. So you'd have to be on like a serious charge or escapee to actually be on that kind of unit. Whereas all the other normal locations, they just hold like, you standard prisoners. So the prison would be, rife with, a few of the rivals and whatnot. But because we was on Cat Eyez, we was just on our own, spur, and nobody else in the prison could get to us, or we couldn't get to them anyway, even if we wanted to. It was just
so who were the other people that were with you at the time?
On the unit?
Yeah.
It's me, my Cody, a lot of Irish, IRA, political leaders was on there. So a lot of big time Liverpool gangsters was on there, like doing big. So
did you not feel like?
Because I was the youngest as well. So like.
So were they all right with you?
Yeah, it was good. Like, that's what I mean from what you hear. Because I'm reading this stuff in the papers.
What, like waiting to get bummed in the showers?
And then I'm going to these places where these people actually are. But when you actually speak to these people and be around them, you realise that they're just like yourself, but caught up in, this a certain situation, or this like circumstances or whatever. But like due to like political leaders or certain people like that was far beyond even what I was.
So what did you do in prison? I mean, 10 years, it's a long time, isn't it?
As in, how did I cope with prison, or did I get
what
through
did
time?
You do? Did you get a job? Did you go into education? Did you?
That was I spent a lot of time in my cell, educating myself at that time, reading, writing, like just a lot of various type of things, even things that I didn't even probably wasn't even quite interested in. I just grab the book, read it, and it was just mainly education, going on to education, doing little courses, more maths, English, and then always staying occupied in my cell with writing and reading, and just doing something constructive with my time. So I was bored, but it was prison. Like, I knew where I was. It was like, you either do something to cope with your time, or you sit there and mope about and just like let 24 hours seem like 36.
How slowly did time drag? Because you're young, everyone else your age, they're out.
I think you don't really analyse the time like that, because 1 year in prison feels like literally 6 months.
Yeah.
You don't realise how fast time goes because you're doing the same stuff every day.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So like, when you're outside, 1 year feels like 2, because it's not real kind of everything you do is around time, and like, gotta be here, you gotta be there, and the only time you need to know about time in prison is just dinner time, or yard, or certain visits, and They're the only elements of time that you need to be worried about. Anything else, you've got no kind of worries or no kind of responsibilities. Everything's practically done for you. So it's just learning how to cope with that time that you've got and put it into ways where you can actually, do something constructive.
So when you come out, you're aged, 26?
Yeah, went in when I was 16 and came out when I was 26, yeah.
So what was that like for you?
Because
you're coming out into a world that isn't that great, is it?
Yeah. A lot of it was fast at the time. It was kind of a bit hard to cope with the speed of how life was going.
What most shocked you when you came out after 10 years?
Seeing my mum.
Yeah. Oh, because you could see she'd aged.
Yeah, because I never saw her for 8 years while I was in prison. Wow. 7 years, 10 months I'd done. Well, practically 8 years in prison after 10. So from when I left my bedroom in 2003 to the end of 2011, you might as well say 2012, I never saw my mum. I just spoke to her on the phone. So hearing her voice and over time trying to remember what she looks like is different. Like it's hard. So you don't always think your mum's never gonna change because you always see that face in your mind. But then when I got out, it hit me like, wow, like just how frail she was, like how time has just consumed me and her not being around each other. Me having to phone, obviously hear her voice through prison, and then she'd be there for me, money, anything I wanted, sending in music, like she'd be there for me, like no matter what. But then just seeing her personally, I don't think she could cope with coming into prison because she suffered from anxiety and depression.
It's quite humiliating, getting searched and getting the stuff out and all that. It makes it sound like I visited people, doesn't it? But you know what I mean?
It's just basically, that's the basics.
Yeah, you're the visitor and you're treated like you're going inside.
Like you're the prisoner. So I think basically that, she didn't want to put herself through that, having to come and see me for an hour or whatever, and then having to leave, and then it'll probably
hard,
how many months
and then for days and days after she's going to be thinking about that. Oh God, so that would bring her down. Yeah.
So I think her doing what she done was typically better for me and her at the same time. Even though at the time it was like, oh, what I see my mum, I've missed her and I've not seen her for 3, 4, 5 years now. I'm just talking to her through the phone. As time goes on, obviously I realised that, I've done enough as it is. That this is like her time to kind of reflect on, getting better. Like I don't want her to come and see me in prison and then go back to, a few years before, because
so look, you come out.
She's already gone through the care stages and all the rest of that stuff with me.
So
and
you come out.
Gangs, now it's prison.
So you come out age 26. Is that it? You say, right, I've turned round a new corner now, a new leaf.
Yeah, that was basically 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, like a decade now. It's been that since I've come out of prison, 2015. And from then, obviously I got recalled, went back to prison for a Class A charge in between all that, because my life wasn't really stable enough, and I was half-heartedly, in the streets and wanting to change. And, so the road kind of just grabbed me a little bit. Got arrested for Class A charge, went down again for another 4.5 years.
Wow. And you served a full 4.5 years?
That was 2.5 years I'd done. But in the space of that time, I had my son. So meeting his mum, when I come out in 2012, obviously that was just like the blessing for me. But then I made the mistake by selling drugs to an undercover officer. Yeah. So then that got me sent back down for 4.5 years, and then for the best part of that 2.5 years I was in prison. Obviously my son's mum was coming up to see me then. Obviously bringing my son every week and supporting me, and obviously we was together at the time, but obviously I had to go back to prison. But yeah, like I made the mistake of getting recalled, and was on spice. I was smoking spice from prison, and then come home, and then it was just all a mess. Like my head was all over the gaff. So yeah, I think that was like, and obviously being a new dad as well, and not being able to understand or kind of being in position to even support my son. No job, I'm in a hostel. Just loads of other factors that to do with, just wanting to be there to
guilt and stress as well.
Yeah, and then that's what led me to get recalled. Not making the best of decisions, like just being like, it's rash, and then like when I got recalled, I think it was then on and coming home that actually kind of made me realize like I need to slow down, because I've been through it as enough already.
So what did you do in your second stint in prison? Because this time you're not in category A, are you?
Nah, that was just like normal prison. I was H&P Forest Bank.
Where's that?
Risley. Risley's in
near Warrington, yeah.
And Forest Bank's in Salford, Pendlebury. So I spent 3 months in there, and then it was going to keep me for a year, obviously for my recall, for my end of license. But then they do the first paper review before you actually go to the parole board. So it gives you a chance to write. That's the opportunity to you to write to the parole board to explain your circumstances or explain why they think you should let you back out and stuff like that. And if you've got a good probation officer that understands obviously your circumstances or kind of, is a bit on your side or whatever, then you've got to squeeze. And I got out after 3 months after doing loads of writing, about the history and a lot of the things was.
Well, for years they used to ignore. I mean, now they know it's an issue. How many kids who are in care end up in prison? And that's because of care. I mean, even kids in care. You talked about the kid who was an orphan, Earl. When you're, when he's 18.
I wonder where he is now.
Yeah, when he's 18, he just gets kicked out into the world.
That's what I mean. So I wonder where them sort of people are now today, because it's not to say like I'm one of the lucky ones. Because from what I've seen, even just being in there, like a lot of crazy stuff. And
I suppose you come out, you've got your brother, you've got your sister, you've got your mum.
And I had family.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was only there for my education and just a bit of bad behaviour at the time. So actually going there and actually understanding what these kids actually go through.
But in prison, again, what I'm saying is a lot of people like you who are in care ended up in prison.
Yeah. Because I've come across a lot of like good friends that over time, as you speak and you have a conversation, you realise I've had similar backgrounds, or the mum was on drugs, or didn't have really that much of an upbringing and stuff like that. So it does make sense, because it's a lot of learned behaviour that you do.
I mean, now you work with kids, don't you?
Yeah. Like I'm trying to get into obviously the education departments and stuff like that, because obviously that's where I'm more kind of prefer to be, obviously regarding my literature and my books and what I'm doing now, obviously to help the kids and obviously guide them in that way, obviously educational wise and literature and stuff like that, because that's what helped me. So that's basically what I want to get into into that.
I mean, what got you to write the book, Through the Eyes of Mine?
I started that, believe it or not, in 2005 in Moorlands, and it was just me scribbling.
Yeah.
Just on a piece of paper. There's like probably issues that I would probably deal with my own self, and just kind of coming to terms with what do I want to be doing in life when I do actually leave prison. Do I want to still be shooting people or going to prison for the rest of my life, or do I want to be putting my experiences or my knowledge into the right thing? So I think being in prison helped me understand a lot about my literature and my writing, and I used to just, like I said, I just read a lot and put myself in that sort of like frame of mind of getting, writing down poems, and we used to write a lot of letters to my mum. So I think just writing a lot of the time in prison just helped me kind of get through, and
but also
kind of helped me
to be able to express actual feelings as well. It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But it helped me do that also. It helped me overcome, it was like, what's the word? Bit of therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
Like to actually get these stuff out on paper, put myself back into that situation when that situation happened, and then deal with the emotion side of it and learn that it's just a part of my life that now that I've got to get over and obviously move forward.
I mean, who published your book? How did you get around to doing that?
The first time, obviously I was looking, I've written all the book, not all of it straight away, but when I first came out, it took me an extra 4 years to actually do all the research, phone like family members, you know, get a lot of information off them, do a lot of information myself regarding where I'm from, like Manchester. And then obviously within myself, like going back to, you know, my days of like care or streets, prison, and then just kind of put everything into like a spidergram type of thing, and then just built around that, and then that kind of helped me, you know, start the actual book itself, because obviously I was going back to what I've already wrote in 2005, so I already had little bits down. It was just a fact of revisiting it and then you know like kind of making it into my actual kind of like story. So at first it was just like poems and you know, letters to my mum that I wouldn't even send. I just write like certain hard stuff, but then wouldn't send it because it was like something for me. And then that kind of them letters that I used to not send, that I used to write, that was the start of the book, of me actually kind of understanding and accepting, like, this is it, like, this is the reason why I've gone through that, this is the reason why my mum done that. I understand now that it was because of my behaviour that, you know, certain situations that my mum had no choice, or had like, she didn't have no choice, but she had a choice, but she had to make the right decision, which was to look out for me. And it was kind of the, you know, I think it was the best decision that she did, because I wouldn't be who I am, because I, you know, it's just them moments.
So how did it get published?
I was going to get to that, because the guy that I was speaking to in prison, I kept word with him for a long time, and I said to him, I'm ready now to get my stuff out there. And he goes, send me the manuscripts. And he knew the guy called I think it was Peter something, but you knew him publishing Push.
Oh, was it Peter Walsh?
No, he's from London.
Yeah.
But it was like a own publishing company. So they sent me the details for that, and then it was them. It was Andrew. Andrew actually worked in publishing Push, and it was Andrew that actually worked with me through the help of my mate that actually knew him in publishing Push. So I knew as like who to go to get that kind of like first initial knowledge of how I would get this out there. So he read it, and he said, yeah, this is something that we can do. And then, yeah, I just went through publishing Push the first time, and then the second edition, I published all that myself. Yeah.
I mean, how did you feel when you first saw your book there? Did it feel great?
It was amazing, even just to have it in my hand. Yeah. Like, and I think, even though it may sound a bit crazy, I didn't do that book for nobody else apart from my mum.
Yeah. And how did your mum feel about you doing a book?
I think she was more proud that I got it completed and finished and out there into the world, because I was telling her how I'm doing a book.
Yeah, worst thing you can do, by the way, when you write it, because you never get on with it. Exactly. Then you end up talking about it rather than doing it.
People that I would see, they'd be like, where's this book? Have you done this book yet? And they'd be like, oh, I'm still working on it.
People don't realise how hard it is, do they?
But then really and truly, I wouldn't be doing anything. I'd be going back home thinking, I'm not even doing anything with this book. and then I think it was just that knowing in myself, like, right, I have to get this done, because no one is going to write it for me. So that's what kind of made me knuckle down. And when I was out, I just, got it done and then got it published, and that was like, great.
And now you're doing a second edition. Is that because your perspective has changed, or is it just because you want to write about your life since then?
A lot of it due to the perception side.
Yeah, your perspective changes as you get older.
And then also, obviously, my auntie, rest in peace, Caroline. She was a big part of my life, as well as my cousin Naomi. Obviously, they passed last year with cancer. So I wanted to dive back into the book because I wanted to do a remembrance type of. I wanted to remaster the book anyway. But then since my auntie passed, I wanted to dive back into it and then talk a bit more about, like you said, how my perspectives have changed. And then I didn't really I wanted to kind of give up or just like do a lot of other crazy stuff when she passed. But then knowing how far I've come to the point where I am today and what I've been doing, she was always pushing me, make sure, get that done. And, even if it's an hour a day, like, just make sure you be writing. And that always stuck with me. So when she passed, I think it was just making sure that, right, I've got to do another one for her and my cousin, put new pictures in there, put 5 new chapters in there, just reevaluate the book.
I mean, you were telling me your child, because your mum was from Dublin.
Yeah.
So you used to go to Dublin on your holidays when you were a kid.
Yeah, me and my sister, 6 weeks holidays, used to go there.
Crazy place to go. We used to go and it'd be even rougher than where we lived.
There's a lot of black people there, though.
We'd be in the Liberties. No, not back in those days. It was like,
not that you saw.
Bed bugs.
Yeah,
that was it.
Saw,
You'd be bitten alive.
It was, there was quite a few, like, blacks when I used to go, but you didn't really, didn't see them that often. But yeah, Dublin was kind of like my second home. I used to be there every year.
Like, do you still go over?
I still got family there now, but I've never been. I've never been for over, say, 30 years now. Because I think like last time I went there was probably like when I was 6, 7 years old. So I've not been back
before
since.
You drank.
Yeah. And I used to get seasick on the ferry, because I used to go over on the ferry. And I remember just getting seasick traveling over there. I'm not sure if it was Christmas times or them sort of times.
That's when it's rough, the Irish Sea.
But I remember this, like, getting seasick and traveling over to Ireland, spending at least a few weeks there with the family.
Well, now you qualify for an Irish passport. Means you can go and live anywhere in Europe. You've got round the Brexit rules, haven't you? The freedom ticket from your mum, same as applying for an English one. Well done. Right, well, I look forward to getting your book, reading it properly. In the meantime, I've got to say, listen, thanks a lot for opening up to us and chatting to us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Hey, cheers. Arron. Did I keep saying Arron?
Arron, it's all right.
I'll get it right one day. Hey, listen, thanks a lot. And yes, Arron's book, there you go, Through the Eyes of Mine. Arron Locz Grossman. Was that your kind of street name, Locz?
Yeah. It's really Nathan should be there.
Yeah.
But I've put Locz instead.